Okay, now, we got these equations, we got this equation, okay? And this system of equations. Now I'm going to number these 1 and 2, and this is kind of the critical step, okay? By looking at these numbers, and we'll talk a little bit more about how you do that and why, because I told you what numbers to use, okay? We'll talk a little bit more about what you do when you got weirder numbers. But you can always find numbers to multiply this by and this, so they'll match up, but one of them will be negative. Okay? Now in my case, the numbers came out really simple. The estimates you made, the numbers are pretty easy to spot too, but not as easy as this one. Okay? That's because I kind of cheated, because I wanted to keep it fairly simple for demonstration. So I call this equation 1, I call this equation 2. I multiply the equation 1 by negative 3, because I can see if I multiply negative 3 by 50, I'm going to get negative 150b, right? Multiply negative 3 by 50b, it'll give me negative 150b. So I'm going to get two equations that I can add and get rid of b. Okay? I multiply every number, every term in the first equation then by negative 3, and of course 3 times 2500 is negative 7500, 3 times negative 9 is positive 270. Normally I'd have to multiply the second equation by something too to get it to come out, but I didn't have to do that in this case. Okay, so I add these two equations. Well, negative 7500, 22500, my numbers are really easy. I got 15,000. Okay, negative 150 and 150 gives me 0, so I don't have to write that down. And 270 negative 150 gives me 120. So I get the equation 15,008 equals 120. You all got very similar equations, just much different numbers because you're estimates. We all made different estimates. And then I just solved for A, and I got 120 over 15,000, which is 0.008. Now, as I say, your numbers, you tried to draw the same picture, okay? One of us drew the best parabola. We're going to figure out who, okay? Now, not necessarily assuming it's mine, because you got 0.008, and that's ultimately going to be the vertical stretch that you would use on the basic y equals x squared function to construct this parabola, okay, if it is a parabola. And you all got, your vertical stretch was twice as great as mine, and yours is about 3 times as great, okay? You know, like 0.016 and 0.023 or something like that. It's close to 0.24, okay? So, well, that just comes down to who drew the better parabola. I don't know, and I give myself a 1 in 3 chance that mine's better than yours are. I give everybody about the same chance. I don't see anything wrong with any of the curves that anybody drew, okay? But somebody did better, some combination of estimates and parabola, okay? So I hope it isn't me, so y'all can go home feeling all proud, realizing that I'm not as smart as sometimes I might appear to be. Okay, and that's not often. Okay, now, okay, so what do we do with this? We've got A equals 0.008. Well, if I plug that into either one of these equations, it's going to give me a number here, and I'll be able to solve for B, right? Well, I'm going to plug it into this equation because the numbers are small. Wouldn't matter. So I take this, and I bring it up here, and I plug it into this equation, and that gives me, well, 2,500 times 0.008 plus 50b equals negative 90. Never do leave myself enough room over here. Okay? Well, hopefully you can see what that is. Just this equation with this, and I'll write it out a little better here in a minute. So this gives me 20 plus 50b equals negative 90. Well, you can finish solving that easily, and you can solve your own equation. You're going to get your value of B. In my case, B is going to be negative 2.2. In your case, it'll be something different. Now that means that I know the values of A and B for my parabola. Okay, there's my A and B, and we know that if I know A and B, I can find the vertex. So kind of test where the vertex ought to be. Mine isn't looking too good. I'm getting a vertex out close to 300. Now that's a side comment. We'll come back to it. Okay, I take that value of B and I plug it into one of the original equations. And I'll sneak my arrow up here. I'm going to plug it into this equation. I've got values of A and B that I can plug in here. So both A and B go into this equation, giving me, and this color doesn't show up very well at the top there, so I'm going to change my colors. Maybe I'll go to a color I haven't used. Usually use red for emphasis. Not a bad place. Okay, so I get 85 equals 2,500 times 0.008 plus don't have room, it's going to be 50 times negative 2.2 plus C. I got all messed up. Well, that gives me 20 minus 110 plus C equals 85. If I solve that, I get C equals 175, which of course is what I knew already from my first equation. Okay? Didn't really have to do that, but it was a good check. Tells me that I actually got the arithmetic right. So we want to go through that whole process, okay? Plug this in here to get your value of B. Then take your A and B and plug into one of the equations that you started with and see if you get the right value for C.